Welcome to the Old Lumens channel again. I'm going to discuss a build I'm doing with a Maglite. I'm making a battery holder for it. I'm using 8 Eneloop batteries. I'm going to use them in 4 series, 2 parallel. So I just want to talk about that for a few minutes. There's a couple different ways you can do a battery holder that way. Anytime you use 4 batteries in series, your positive and negative are going to end up at the same end. So if I start here with positive to negative, positive to negative, positive to negative, positive to negative, my positive terminal is at the top and my negative terminal is at the top. Now, most of the time, or all the other times before when I've made one of these, I've then taken and run the negative all the way back to the bottom again. Okay, but this time I'm going to do it like I've seen in some other lights, and that is to have the negative and the positive right at the top. Okay, so the first thing I did was I went to the Maglite switch, and I decided that I could get ground off the set screw on the switch, which I'm going to be using for ground for the driver anyways. So I made a copper ring to go here on the outside for the negative path, and that's wired right to that set screw. Okay, so now I have my negative path and I have my positive path in the center. Alright, so then I decided to go to my battery holder and work on that, and I just wanted to show you that, you know, this is basically how it's going to be when it's done. All your springs are really compressed nice and tight. I like that. I don't like to have a lot of play in the springs. It's all made with copper terminals, and these are gold-plated springs. Really, the gold-plated springs aren't, the gold plating is not doing a heck of a lot, because DC runs through the wire, not on the outside. AC will run on the outside, so gold-plated springs on AC would be okay. It should be a better path. But it's not going to do a heck of a lot for DC. It's still spring wire, and even with the gold plating, your electricity is going to run through the wire, not just on the outside of the wire. Okay. But anyways, I'm using the gold-plated springs just because I got them. I've taken 2 4AA battery holders, and I stripped out all of the original components in the holders to the bare plastic housings. Then, and I have some stills, I'll show some of this too, but then I glued both of them together. Okay, I just took and used epoxy and under pressure to glue the two together. Then I started figuring out, how my terminals were all going to be. I'm going to take this out now so I can show you. I have not glued all these terminals. I want to show you what I'm doing with them and do a little explanation out of them. So let me get these out of the way here. And I'll get the rest of it talked about. Okay. Alright, so what I did was I wanted to do it probably the simplest way I could do it, and that would be to just have all the terminals just slide in. You're not going to get probably a good picture of this. Slide in or slide over where they need to go. Now, in the center where you have one battery to the next, I just made a terminal that's basically a copper L shape, or not a copper L shape, but a copper U shape, bent to fit in the plastic housing itself. I cut out in here, cut down in, so that tab will fit down in when I put it in place. That tab fits in there. Okay, so it's not going to touch anything on the outside of the body of the light, and then the terminal fits right in place, and I have negative here and positive on that end. I did that with all 4 of these center terminals. Okay, then on the top section, I needed to split up my positive and negative. I got positive and then negative here, and on the other side, positive and negative there. So the two positives come up to the top, and what I'll do is I just wanted to show you this before I put the button on. I'll just put a button on the top out of copper, and that will make the positive contact for the center. The negatives I brought up each side, okay, from the bottom up to the top by again cutting out the battery holder, the plastic, so I could fit this L-shaped piece of copper in there. See if I can take it off and show you. Okay, and see if I can get it back in again. Good enough for now. So then I have both of them, and they'll both come against that copper spring seat, or the copper seat on the switch. So now I have all my negative path. These are all going to be glued on with epoxy. I'll epoxy each one of them and clamp it while I'm epoxying it. But and the two bottom ones, of course, because you come down and you go back up again, they're just a solid plate with negative on one side, positive on the other, and they slip right in. Okay, that completes the circuit. And the bottom does nothing. I mean, all that's really going to be used now is I'll put a plate on the bottom here so that the big Maglite spring will go up against it and compress everything down to the, against the top there. It'll compress everything down, all right, to make good contact. Basically, that's it. These cutouts in the plastic were just done with a file, okay? The same with the bigger cutouts in the plastic here. I just did it with a file. Really simple to do, didn't take a lot of time. What took a lot of time was cutting all these pieces of copper. It just, all I do is I take and I measure the width here, and I got, like on this one, it was like 12 millimeters or 11.5 millimeters wide and 10 millimeters deep, so I know, to start that with a cut. Then I take and put it in, and after the flat's made, put it in and fold it over, and then figure out where I've got to cut the edge off here, so it's not sticking out. The same with the rest of them. It's just a matter of making the notch, and then laying your piece across the top here, and figuring where that notch is going to be, and then notch the copper so that it fits inside of it. It's time consuming. It's one of those things that will try your patience, and it's an all-night effort to do something like this. It took basically a day to make this thing, and I still have all the gluing and everything to do on it, and finish that top positive terminal. So it'll probably take another half a day to get the rest of it done. But that's just an idea if you want to do series parallel. When you're only doing three, like if you're doing 3 series and 2 parallel, then your positive is going to be on top and your negative is going to be on the bottom. With 3 batteries, it's always going to be that way. So an odd number of batteries, will always give you a positive on one end and negative on the other, usually, when you're doing a battery carrier. But when you do 4, you're always going to end up being positive and negative at the same end. I mean, it's just the way it is. So even number of batteries, positive and negative, be at the same end. Odd number of batteries, positive and negative, be at opposite ends. I guess that's about it. I don't really have anything else to say to it. I will be doing some stills to go along with this, but that's my feeble attempt at trying to explain to you how to maybe make a battery carrier yourself. This copper is just copper sheet. It's 10 thousandths or 12 thousandths thick. It's easy to cut with a pair of scissors, and a file, and that's all it took really, was a couple of files and some scissors to make up this whole thing, and then a little bit of soldering, to put the springs on. So that's it. Like I say, I'll include some stills with it. Thanks for watching.